Alright, we're back. Kikirik versus Stan. Fortunately, Stan still has not accepted the friend request, so I cannot spectate his match.
I must protect the wild.
We can only see the half that's being played by Kikirik. Yeah, no Stan. Does not respond to any of the friend requests we've sent today. So apologies, guys. Best we can do is simply watch Kikirik's side of things as he opens up with what appears to be a ramp. Yeah, a ramp druid. Ramp or spell? Looks like ramp to me. Stan more than likely going with a... Oh. There's Stan. What do you know? Alright then. So Dragon Warrior versus Ramp Druid. Dragon Warrior has some decent dragon. Well, he doesn't want to play the Fairy Dragon too soon, otherwise the Twilight Guardian won't have anything to be buffed by. Kikirik, meanwhile, decides to coin into Wild Growth. Also has Innervate on hand too. And a second dragon, he's hoping to draw into one a little while from now. It says 3 mana crystals, but only shows 2. That's weird. He could use Raven Idol into Power of the Wild to give himself a Panther. Does he want a spell or a minion? More than likely a spell. Gets the spell. He might want Bite. Could use Bite on the next turn to deal with most things that the Dragon Warrior could summon. Could also use Claw. If he used Claw this turn, he could get rid of the Fairy Dragon right now. And he summons the Panther. And there's the next dragon he needed. And as always, on casting a spell, the giant flaming green wreath decides to hang around the druid like a magic, I don't know, bullseye. It's a weird glitch, and it keeps happening. Summons a second Panther after getting rid of the first one by trading with the Fairy Dragon. Twilight Guardian is likely to make his appearance this turn. And there he is. Will defend against the Panther. What he could do is use Bite and then Living Roots to remove the Twilight Guardian. Or he could use his Druid of the Claw to summon a new taunt. Or he could destroy it. Does he want tokens or damage? Decides to go for removal. Keeps the Panther on hand for another turn. And pulls ahead with the tiniest of life leads. Is now the time to use Azure Drake? Cochrane Lee will just die immediately from the Panther. So he takes out Azure Drake and draws into a Blackwing Corruptor. Will most likely be used yet next turn against whatever can be summoned by Kikirik. He could innervate into a Ragnaros. But with that many cards in hand, his opponent would likely have some form of removal and executes. A Ravaging Ghoul, something to remove it. What will Kikirik do? Could just use Druid of the Claw, give himself a taunt.
For no one.
Innervate, and then Rag. Open to either hit face or the Azure Drake. Kills the Azure Drake, moving all spell damage. Stan has no way of summoning his own Ragnaros for another 2 turns. He does have a Finley now. Uses Blackwing Corruptor. Gets rid of the Panther. Summons himself a brand new hero power. Deadly Shot or Life Tap. Sorry, Steady Shot, not Deadly Shot. His opponent's running low on cards. He might want to start hitting him in the face with Steady Shot.
What now?
He's gotta be fearful of swipes, so Reinforce might not be the best one. Life Tap. Life Tap might be best if he wants to continue card draw. No, he decides to go with the Steady Shot. Could use Wrath on Finley, getting rid of him, allowing his Ragnaros to have 2 decent targets.
What to do?
Kikirik. Decides to Wrath. Uses it against the Finley, as is expected.
Where shall I strike?
Then takes out a Tommy. He's now protected and has a decent amount of attack too. He could use a Cochrane Elite and then execute to get rid of the taunt, but then be using up a minion and a spell against a sort of lackluster combo. He could throw down a couple of smaller, weaker minions to distract the Ragnaros. And that's just what he does. Raven Knight will be best used here. Hopefully, Discovering Swipe. Oh, decides to go for a minion instead. Ironbeak out. Wow, these are... Wow. No, none of these. Yeah, Infested Tauren is probably the best of the 3, but wow. I mean, you do want to discover an owl when you have something big to deal with, but not usually. What does he do? Does he get rid of the fairy dragon? That's exactly what he does. And Rag hits face.
A natural mistake.
Stan can finally summon his own Ragnaros, but only has a 1 in 3 or 4 shot of hitting what he wants it to. Depending on what his Cochrane Elite does. Decides to hit the Druid of the Claw. And hits face. There's no weapon for a while now. And using Wild Growth right now would be a very poor choice.
That belongs in a museum.
Besides, no weapon his opponent could have would be that powerful. Decides to use Harrison now, in case his Rag dies. Down to 5 health. Stan needs something to save himself. Not a whole lot left in his arsenal.
For the life binder.
He'd still be dealing with... Wait, it would only summon a taunt. So he might want to use the Alexstrasza's champion to take out the slime. No, decides to use Execute instead. He's still down to just 5 health, though. I mean, this is over unless that hits Harrison, and it doesn't. And thus, Kikirik takes the first round. Man, that's loud. On to the next bout. It's currently 1-0, Kikirik1. Let's go back in standby mode and wait for them to finish preparations.
I will fight with honor.
Kikirik decides that Spellbreaker is better than Ironbeak Owl. I can't disagree with that at all. So he's going for a late game control paladin against a face totem shaman. Yeah, he wants to get rid of that entire hand. And he summons stuff that isn't much better. He needs a spell to enable his Wild Pyromancer to protect himself. Kicks things up with an Abusive Sergeant, paying no heed to the battle cry being wasted. If you need a 1-drop, he's there. Kikirik doesn't have anything on turn 1 to use. Takes out Wild Pyromancer. Well, what he could do is Wild Pyromancer coin, which will get rid of the Abusive Sergeant, and leave his Totem Golem susceptible.
Let me think.
It'd be a waste of the coin. What does he want? It'll die to Abusive Sergeant unless he casts a spell. And his only spell is the coin. Does he hold off for another turn? Taking 5 more damage on the face? He could just Hero Power. They'll ignore it most likely.
I must move quickly.
Decides to coin initially.
Let me think.
He could coin into Wild Pyromancer, then Humility on the Totem Golem. Decides to instead use Elder Peacekeeper on the Totem Golem. Ooh, he might have wanted to wait to use it on the Flame Wreath. If he didn't already have Humility, he'd be in big trouble. He's going to use Shapeshift, believing his opponent won't have too many taunt minions. And goes face. He's gonna want to wait to use Humility. He'll use Aldor to take care of Finley, and then most likely Hero Power, or get his Wild Pyromancer for another turn. Making his opponent decide where to use the Abusive Sergeant. Stan most likely will use Flame Wreath on the next turn, believing his opponent's already used one of his main damage dampeners.
Reporting for duty.
Decides to go with Hero Power. Who does he attack? Does he get rid of Sir Finley? Finley or the totem? Goes for the totem, leaving the board nearly full. Is it time? It's time. Here comes the Flame Wraith. I'm gonna use Finley to get rid of the Silverhand Recruit. There it is. Could use Humility on the Flame Wraith. Probably definitely wants to do that. But does he use Wild Pyromancer first to get rid of the Totem Golem? Which will then leave his Wild Pyromancer to die against Sir Finley? Or even the other Flame Wraith remains?
Reporting for duty.
And thus he has a 4 mana 1/7. A Mugugashi Warden without the taunt. It's too bad he doesn't have any kind of silence. What he could do is use the Flame Tongue Totem to power up 2 of his minions, or he could just use an Argent Horse Rider, or build up some taunt, leaving his opponent doesn't have any board clears. Gotta wonder if Stan is also running Bloodlust. With the board he's running, it could be very helpful.
Let me think.
But the way it is he want to use True Silver Champion now to take out... at least the totem. No, he wants to hold off for now. He believes he'll draw into a consecration soon enough to finish clearing the board. Or maybe even an equality. If he gets an equality, then yeah, board's dead anyway. Gets out the Feral Spirit. And the board is full. If there was ever a time to pull the trigger on a board clear, it's now. And he doesn't quite have it yet. He's still 1 mana away from the taunt. He has no spells to use with his Wild Pyromancer. The only option is Kodo, which will destroy at least one of the minions. Not the worst one. However, with that Flame Tongue and that Rockbiter weapon, is that lethal? It would appear to be. And with that, Stan takes his first match. Just 1 mana away from that taunt. No board clear, no taunt, no chance. Kikirik just did not draw to the right cards. And thus we're 1-1. Currently waiting for them to finish preparations to begin their next bout. Let's go back to standby until they're ready. So it's now Stan 1, Kikirik 1. What decks will they pick next? Looks to be a Dragon Warrior against a Control Paladin.
Victory or death! I will fight with honor.
That's exactly what it is. You want to put N'Zoth at the bottom of your deck, though. And probably put Stampede and Kodo away, too. Once again, I feel compelled to remove the kite. I just don't trust it.
Mind if I roll me?
Kikirik uses his Loot Hoarder, hoping to build up his hand better. And And Stan obliges him by getting rid of him immediately. He's a while from putting that to good use. If he throws out another smaller minion, it'll just be the meat grinder for that fiery war axe. And that's what he does. He uses the last of his durability to take that out. Meanwhile, Kikirik equips his own weapon and takes out the fairy dragon. Does not want to deal with that whole spell immunity thing it has. Unfortunately, without his wild pyromancer, it's unlikely he'll find the same combination with the quality they could have had earlier.
Well met.
My thanks.
Decides to coin out his Azure Drake, giving him an execute against one of the larger minions for the next one, and yes, a second equality. If only he had some consecration, or another pyromancer. He'll probably use his True Silver Champion to get rid of the Azure Drake. Then he can summon Harrison, giving himself a decent body on the board.
That belongs in a museum.
And I believe that was the Fiery War Axe. Just one turn, too late. Kikirik with a slight life lead, and the ability to regain a life lead if he runs out. Summons himself a Silverhand Recruit. Does he want to use the... Nope, decides to keep both Hammers of Wrath for later instead of just hitting face and drawing a card. 6 mana up top. Draconoid Crusher is still a 6/6. Also has Frothing Berserker, which is in no danger of dying as far as he knows. And Bloodhoof Brave. Always good to have.
What now? I have an axe to grind.
And with the armor up, his mana is well spent. A second Forbidden Healing. Good for the later game, not so good right now. He could use Equality, get rid of it right now. He has a second one. Your opponent's going to think either you have a second one or you wasted it. It's a good psychological game. Draws himself a Ragnaros the Light Lord. No, Aldor will just bring him down to 3 attack, I believe? No, it brings him down to 1 attack total. I thought that didn't cancel out the Enrage bonus. Good to know. This is Blackwing Corruptor on the Aldor. He could use Humility. He could take out Ragnaros the Light Lord, which will probably die from his minions and weapon. He's running very low on minions right now. Could use his other Hammer of Wrath to remove the Bloodhoof Brave. Decides instead to go with the Ragnaros the Light Lord, which will promptly heal himself for 5. You could sacrifice the Bloodhoof Brave and use Execute to remove the Ragnaros from the equation. Pulling out Frothing Berserker first would be a good idea. Does he want to attack with his own face? Seems kind of risky at this stage. You want to build up your armor. You want to have something you can use Shield Slam on later. Assuming he's running in a dragon deck.
The blade be thirsty.
And that's just what happens. Now, unimpeded, he attacks face. Still no consecration. No way to clear this board. You can use Hammer of Wrath on the Cochrane Elite. Decides to go with Quality, then Hammer of Wrath, and then Blackwing Coordinator. Nope, decides to use it on the Frothing Berserk, which is a much better idea. And there's the consecration, everyone.
Must move quickly.
Nine more damage to face. Then he might want to summon Ragnaros. Bring his opponent down to just 10 health. Making Draconic Crusher all the better choice next turn. He has a combo for board clear. Does he take it?
Let me
Left enough to clear the board and put down Ascension Shieldmaster. Thing is, Stan doesn't want to use his Deathwing unless he's out of options or his opponent has too many options.
For Blackwing!
For the Life Finder.
Throws down Draconic Crusher, getting the full +3/+3. Humility is a great idea to have right now. He can heal himself for 18. If he put down Sylvanas, it would have been a great deterrent from using Deathwing. Since, actually I'm not sure. If you kill something during your battle cry, does that enable its death rattle to hit you before you land? Haven't seen that in action. Because no one is that bold enough to try it. Clearing their own hand and board and losing Deathwing is pretty much losing the match.
I wonder...
You'd have to know what your final 5 cards in your deck are. And how to use them appropriately to take control of Ragnaros or destroy him. Not Ragnaros, Deathwing or destroy him. Decides to hit face, and then probably just armor up. No, he goes for Deathwing. Loses his dragon and both Ravaging Ghouls. And Kikirik top decks Aldor Peacekeeper. However, Kikirik's in no danger of dying just yet unless his opponent can somehow manage to get a enraged Grommash. which is highly unlikely.
I wonder.
I have no time for games.
Gets himself a Sylvanas. What does he want to do? Could use hero power. Could just throw down the Aldor.
Follow the rule.
And that's what he does. Adds insult to injury. Slams on the Aldor, drawing himself a new card, Frothing Berserker. Put it out right now,
My blade be thirsty.
so it can be fed to Sylvanas. Both opponents are now out of cards in their hand. And there's Tyrion.
Put your faith in the light.
Kikirik is just top decking after top decking here,
Reporting
getting
for duty.
amazing cards. Stan is immediately regretting throwing out his entire hand for Deathwing. Nothing he could have predicted. It was a bold move to begin with. As Kikirik moves up with 2-1.
Anduin versus Garrosh.
Victory or death!
The light shall bring victory.
And thus, it comes down to this. Match point for Kikirik. Dragon Priest versus Dragon Warrior. For the first time in a long time, a priest might actually win a tournament. Excellent opening hand, though. For both players. Likely to use coin into Blackwing Technician. Or he'll just throw down the Wormrest Agent,
Are you mocking me?
enabling him to defend against the Fairy Dragon, which would probably be hit by a slam.
My blade be thirsty.
So as you Shadowward Pain, the Frothing Berserker before it can actually build up its attack, and takes out the Fairy Dragon. Does he want to use coins so he can heal it? If he does, his opponent will use Slam on it, or, even worse yet, Fiery War Axe. Priest is slowly pulling ahead. With no dragons in hand, Blackwing Corruptor can't do much, aside from just being a decent body 5/4.
I wield the power.
And he manages to top deck a Twilight Guardian. And takes it out.
I wield the power. Blackwing.
Uses the Blackwing Corruptor against the other Blackwing Corruptor. Likely to kill one another. Could use Slam into Execute to get rid of it. Nope, instead decides to use Fiery War Axe, better option, and continue attacking face. Could use double Blackwing Technician here, both of which could die against the Blackwing Corruptor.
My work is paramount. Leave me alone.
And that's probably what's going to happen. Is that Malgarok? Yeah, Malgarok up there. I've only ever seen him generate cursed blades. It's not fun. Does he use it now? He still has 1 durability left in his Fiery War Axe, and he gets himself... Oh. Wow. Orhal. Well done. He's got all the board clear he'll ever need now. He could use Entomb. Entomb would be a good idea right now. You won't want to sacrifice his weapon just for face damage just yet. It doesn't make full use of his mana. That's the right move to make. Meanwhile, Stan plays Ragnaros. It's a free 8 damage to face. Not very many options on this side. Kikirik draws into something he doesn't really want. He could use Power Word Shield to get another card. Probably just lesser heal his own face. Oh, he is 1 mana shy of being able to use Shadow Word Death to get rid of Ragnaros. Just 1 card earlier and he would have had it. He'll use Gorehal to get rid of the Azure Drake.
What was planned.
Yeah, he realizes that. He set at his opponent to take out the Azure Drake, then get 8 more damage to his own face. Kikirik doesn't... Well, Stan doesn't need to play any of the cards. He's just gonna do this. Building up his board. What he doesn't know is his opponent's sitting on a pretty significant stack of control cards. He could Entomb the Ragnaros, he could Shadow Word Death it, he could Cabal Shadow Priest the Twilight Guardian. He could board clear. Looks like he's going to board clear. Arcana, Circle of Healing, and Lesser Heal on the Twilight Guardian. If the Twilight Guardian had somehow kept taunt, and somehow been 2 or less attack, he probably would have used the Cabal Shadow Priest to take control of it. He could use Execute on the Arcana. But right now stands in no danger of losing just yet.
I wonder.
He doesn't have to get card draw or an extra minion off his spell damage. He could just use it as spell damage. And that's what he does. Armors up and holds onto the weapon for later. I need it. Knowing his opponent is unlikely to have additional 2 or less attack minions, Cabal Shadow Priest would not be a good idea to use right now, since also his weapon has 5 attack, which will then kill the Cabal Shadow Priest anyway. So he's waiting.
For the Lifebinder.
And thus, Cabal Shadow Priest has a target. There's Malgarok. You gotta hope he doesn't have a Cursed Blade. If he does have a Cursed Blade, this is over. It'd be best to use the Cabal Shadow Priest right now to take control of Alexstrasza's champion, and then lesser heal his own face.
I wonder.
Yeah, Cabal Shadow Priest will die. We'll take control of one of the minions first and bring the weapon durability down a little more. Decides instead to Entomb. Keeping in mind, Kikirik is still sitting on a 12/12 Deathwing. Just shy of lethal. He doesn't want to use the weapon just yet. Once he does, it's gone. How many options are left? Taking control of the Alex Strauss's champion, Cabal Shadow Priest is probably his best bet. Or he could say, screw it, I'm using Deathwing. Or unfortunately, his opponent has a, well, he has a lot of ways of dealing with Deathwing, and there it is.
For the War Chief!
And there it is.
You have best.
Kikirik counts up, realizes he has lethal. That brings us to 2-2. This will be the final round of the finals. The winner of this next game decides who wins, who takes first place in the Arcana Gaming August Final. Both opponents are preparing their decks. Dragon Warrior just managed to outpace Dragon Priest in the last match. You gotta wonder what their final decks are gonna be. Are they gonna pick a left field deck or something tried and true?
Anduin versus Malfurion.
I must protect the wild.
The light shall bring victory.
It appears we're facing off with a Yogg-Saron Spell Druid, or possibly a Ramp. I just never see Yogg and Ramp in the same deck anymore. It'd be hilarious if this came down to a Yogg-Saron Super Rando Spell match versus a Dragon Priest. Kikirik seems adamant that Dragon Priest will be the final winning deck in this game. You might want to get rid of the Arcana and the Blackwing Corruptor. Blackwing Technician, probably want to hold on to in case a dragon pops up. You won't be able to use it before turn 3 though. Meanwhile, his opponent will probably immediately coin into Wild Growth up there. He's got a lot of mid-game, a lot of late-game potential. Kikirik, you gotta make a choice. And that's what he does. He gets Fairy Dragon, and Blackwing Technician, and Entomb. His Entomb choice is going to be very difficult. This looks like Stan is playing with Ramp. Ramp Yogg. He could put Fairy Dragon down right now. He still has Chill Maw in hand. No spells can be used against it. Be a good idea to use Fairy Dragon now, then Blackwing Technician turn 3. He's got a decent curve, he shouldn't waste it. Meanwhile, up top, more than likely going to be using Wild Growth next turn, and then Violet Teacher coins something else. Good job by Kikirik, puts out the Fairy Dragon, and Stan Wild Growths his way into turn 4. Excellent. Blackwing Corruptor.
My work is paramount. Leave me alone.
Kikirik is building up that board. Meanwhile, up top, we have 2 Violet Teachers. Is he going to put out Druid of the Claw? Is he going to put out Azure Drake? What does he want to do? He only has one other spell. Cat form or bear form? Almost definitely going to be bear form. Goes on Azure Drake. If he uses Swipe next turn, that's the end of the board. There are no other spells he can use. He attacks both and trades with the Azure Drake, then Lesser heals the Blackwing Technician. That's just about his best option. Not knowing his opponent has swipe, though. And that's just what he does. If he had one more mana, he could use the Blackwing Corruptor. It wasn't in the cards this time. Instead up top, I think I'm seeing the back of the card. Yeah, there it is. Living Roots. Be good to have if he used his Violet Teacher. Throw down the taunt. Yep, he's going to use Bear Form. And Blackwing Corruptor will have just enough damage in its battle cry to take it out. Still with a swipe in hand, it's easy to deal with. Looks like that's a Mire Keeper. Does he want the additional mana crystals for later or the additional minions? Knowing his opponent has Cabal Shadow Priest, he probably won't go for the minion.
What to do?
If he wants the 7 or so cards in his hand to be one less, 6 of the cards in his hand to be one less, he could play Emperor right now. Instead of electing to go with Swipe, followed by Living Roots. Something I assumed he'd wait to use in conjunction with Violet Teacher.
Is someone injured?
With 2 Entombs in hand, he's waiting for something big to play. More than likely can be used on Emperor Thau, unless he discovers or plays something else. Violet Teacher into Feral Rage. Nope, instead decides to go with this. Discovering a spell. Could get Mark of the Wild, enabling his Living Root to take out the Northshire Cleric, or get Swipe to take out whatever else he might be afraid of. Decides to go with Mark of the Wild.
I am ready to learn.
Attacking the Northshire Cleric. Disabling any additional card draw he could have gotten. Like that, for instance. Here he can play Chillmaw, enabling him to wipe the board of all other tokens. And that's what he chooses to do. Next turn gonna likely be Ragnaros unless his opponent plays something they just can't resist using Entomb on. Up at the top, possibly Emperor Thau, and the rest are unlikely. He elects to use all the tokens to remove Chillmaw, which would have removed all the tokens anyway. Then plays another Violet Teacher, and then possibly Innervate. Innervate into Emperor Thau, not helping himself so much.
I am ready to learn.
Only bringing down 2 of his cards by 1 mana. And now would be the time to Entomb. Unless he wants to use Ragnaros instead. He entombs Emperor Thau. Lester heals his own face. Meanwhile, up top, Stan has 1 spell and 1 minion to use. Gonna use that Ancient of War and then Hero Power, or just use the spell to give himself an additional token and maybe 8 armor. Decides to go for Hero Power instead. Doesn't want to fill up his board too much. Wants the opportunity to use additional minions when necessary. Down to Kikirik side. He's waiting on that Deathwing. He might want to use Entomb on the Ancient of War, removing it and allowing him to use it later on after his hand has been emptied by Deathwing. You could also use Twilight Guardian instead, blocking at least some of the damage from his opponent. Or you could throw down Ragnaros and just let it fire wildly at his opponents. The best combo is probably Entomb and then Lester heal his own face.
I wonder.
If he wants card draw, which he probably doesn't due to Deathwing sitting right there, he could Power Word Shield the Ancient of War before using Entomb on it. Decides to go for Entomb on Ancient of War. Bring it out of the pack. While up top, probably going to use that Azure Drake with Yogg-Saron in hand. If you want an entertaining game, this is the one. Decides to hold on to the other two minions in case Deathwing makes an appearance. It's getting more and more likely. He knows that his opponent has Deathwing. He's used it in several other games so far. Decides to go for the 4 attack.
I am ready to learn.
The board is now full. Now's the time to Deathwing. Or is it? It is. Come on, just do it. And thus, his hand disappears. Now, Stan could roll with Yogg-Saron, or he could use Cenarius and give himself some protection against Deathwing, pretty much guaranteeing himself the win if his opponent can't do anything else. His opponent could still draw into Ancient of War that he stole,
I wonder.
but he likely doesn't have any more taunt minions or healing spells for himself. He's gonna use Yogg-Saron, and thus this match comes down to a lot of RNG. Gives himself 3 cards for later, 3 ambushes. Whirlwind. Nourish, giving himself 3 more cards to play with. Another Nourish. Another Noble Sacrifice. That won't happen because you can't have 2 secrets of the same kind. Marquis Sarge.
Well played.
Well played.
Very nice. And thus, the charge on Yogg-Saron wins it. Stan takes home the championship. GG's, guys.